Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another Wildwoods Beekeeping live podcast. And tonight we have Bruce from Bruce's Bees. He's not too far from me, he's a little bit down south. He's about an hour south from me, and so I want to get him back on our live stream again. So I appreciate you, Bruce, joining us tonight. And before we get into some topics, because I got a couple topics since we're pretty close, location, I got some topics. But first, if you would, share with us kind of how you got started into beekeeping for people who don't know who you are and kind of what inspired you to get into beekeeping.
From the time I was very young, I kind of had an obsession with nature. I grew up on a farm with nature and bugs, insects. Believe it or not, I had an insect collection when I was in the first grade with a bunch of insects on it, and just was very intrigued with all things nature. And for some reason, I had an interest in bugs, but I never really got interested in bees that much until later in life. We actually had an entomologist at church where I grew up, and he kind of showed me how to do some different things. I had them pinned and I labeled a bunch of them. I think I actually used a lot of that collection when I was in the 9th grade for a biology project, I think, or something like that. Maybe the 6th grade. I can't remember. It's been a long time, but fast forward several years. It was actually a little over 10 years ago. I guess it was October of 2012. My dad was really sick. He had cancer, and I was actually doing home health at the time, and I had a patient that had honeybees at his house, and I was just really intrigued. He explained to me about a lot of things about bees, and so I just kind of got interested in him and asked questions, and he would tell me about how different things worked, and it was pretty cool. And somewhere around that time, there was a talk at church. It was a conference we had, a big conference, and when one of the leaders of the church, it's a worldwide conference type thing, and he gave a talk about honeybees and how they work together and just all the statistics about honeybees. And then he compared that to the church, and there were just a lot of things that kind of came together. And then my dad passed away in January, and I'd been thinking about it. And then I asked my mom if I could put bees on her place. And in April, it was either a Monday or Tuesday, I think, I didn't even know what a frame was. I had no idea what any of that meant. And so Monday or Tuesday night, I started looking online. I knew it was about time to get some bees because it was towards the end of April. If I was going to get them for that year, this was in 2013. And I had a friend that I knew through church that hooked me up with a local guy, David Eldridge, not far from here, who back then he was a commercial beekeeper, and he sold equipment and everything. And he just set me up with all the equipment I needed, the bees, and went to his house. That morning I went to my buddy from church, the guy I knew from church, and he let me go through some hives, and so I could see what the different bees looked like. I went right down to David's house. It wasn't far from his. Picked up 2 colonies that he put in boxes for me. They were nukes that I purchased and set them on the hive stand up at the farm, and it's been an obsession ever since. The first time I actually opened those hives up and went through them, from that point on, I just have never looked back. It's just been an absolute joy to work with these bugs in a box, and it can be extremely frustrating, discouraging, but it can also be pretty exciting and cool. And so I'm just as excited now as ever, and I can't wait for the year to really get rolling.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty excited for this upcoming season. I've been waiting for it since last year once we got into winter, and then here we are and kind of right getting into it. Today the high was actually like 79, so basically 80, and tomorrow's supposed to be 80, and Wednesday's supposed to be 80. So we're gonna have warm temperatures, and we're gonna be having some good weather for the next couple of at least this next week and next week, but it's gonna be raining. So that's unfortunate, but we'll probably do our bees this week when we need to, and get ready for the rain, and at least sometime before then we'll have a cold snap. Before um whenever we have Easter, at least we'll have another cold snap before then. But I hope we don't. But I do got another question I do want to ask you, because I've been kind of keeping up and watching some of your videos lately, and it's really fun to watch other beekeepers' videos no matter where we're from. And since you're kind of located near me, we have kind of similar temperatures. But I was going to ask you was what are you trying to do now, because I know you're trying to do a couple splits, and I was wondering if you could kind of explain kind of what you're trying to do now and what your goals are for this year.
Well, I've kind of made a goal for myself to get back to the basics this year, increase my numbers back to where I need them to be. Had a lot of loss this year, up in Ozark particularly. A few other colonies and other places. I have some loss every year, but this year it got devastated up there. I lost a vast majority of my colonies up in Ozark, and so I'm trying to kind of rebuild those numbers. And but just get back to beekeeping basics. I did not send any colonies out to California this year because I just wanted to keep my bees home. We had kind of a bad experience last year. That's not really the excuse. The excuse is I just want to have my bees here, be able to manage the bees and become better and more efficient at managing the bees at home. When they're out in California, I don't have any control over what's happening to them. I can't get in them, see how they're doing. I can't learn from them. I can't fix any problems that they're having. And so I just decided this year to keep everybody home. And it's put a little more work on me, and it's a whole different strategy than when they're off in California. But it's been good. It's been good for me. So that's kind of what I'm doing. My goal is to get back to the basics. I'm making some splits right now to build my numbers back up, and I want to make a lot of honey. That's kind of my big goal this year is to get my honey crop back up to where it needs to be. I'm down to my last. I've got one bucket left in my garage of honey from last year, and so I'm going to run out real soon. And so we don't have a lot of. Um, we didn't get enough last year, and I knew it when we just did the best we could, but just didn't have a very good year last year. And so this year, I hope will be better. We'll see. It all depends on the mother nature, the bees, and the beekeepers. So we'll see if we can all work together and have a good year.
Yeah, I get you. And last year, we didn't really have a good year either with the spring flow, and we got into you know the DERF, so we didn't have anything there either. So last year for us was really not good either. We lost a lot of hives during the DERF. Really around June. Like late June and July. We lost some numbers, and this winter, we lost a good bit of our hives. But this year we're gonna try to hope for that the weather's gonna be better. And I'm kind of similar too. I'm gonna try to get back to basics this year, because last year I didn't really do too well. With some of the different things that I could have done better on. So this year I'm gonna try to do better on a lot of different things, and we're gonna try to do that to try to we're gonna get some nukes. I already got some nukes on order that we're probably gonna get in mid-April, so that'll be good. We can kind of boost up our numbers, because right now I only have like one hive that survived out of the six, so that's like a 20% survival rate. But we're gonna try to do better this year, and have a better plan, and try to make sure all our hives comes out next after next winter. So that will be good, and definitely good to have some kind of a plan in store for the upcoming season, and
Yeah.
such. And that's what we're trying to do. I know that's pretty much what everybody's really trying to do now, and have a good plan going on for them to be able to have a good season this year. I do
Yeah.
have a question, kind of going back to your splits. This was just curiosity for me, and maybe some people might find interest in it. I was wondering, like, how are you doing your splits? Because I know these are pretty, earlier splits. Because last year I did some early splits, and I had some success with it. I was just wondering how you're doing your splits, and kind of what your intentions are for the splits too.
Well, I'm hoping they're going to be strong enough to make me some honey. I just really wanted to get a head start on it because I am concerned about honey crop. I don't want to break everything down so small that I won't get honey. I mean, if I went out and split all my colonies 3 or 4 ways right now, I could have a bunch of hives, but I wouldn't have any honey.
Yeah.
So what I did was I did a video, oh, 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, and I was down in Slocum, and it was really just the bees were looking real strong, and but they were super spicy and a little bit mean. And so um, a guy out in Hawaii, Zach Heinzelman, he's a a commercial queen breeder out there. He sells most of his queens to great big commercial guys. As a matter of fact, I wanted to get some more from him. I reached out to him today, and he told me he's sold out through March. And so
Oh,
I was hoping to get some more like this weekend or next weekend. But I don't think he sells a lot of small. I don't know. I don't think he sells a lot of small batches of bees, small lots of bees. But he said we need to get some. I need to get you some queens so we can calm down your bees a little bit. And so I messaged him, and he is often messaging me about different things. And so I thought, well, why don't we do that? And so he told me a price. I paid as far as I know full price for him, shipping, got him in here. And I like the idea of mated queens this early in the season because if you do cells, we're getting in a more safe range. But if you use cells, the earlier you use cells, the more risky it is if you do have weather issues, which of course we have that here. It can be very inconsistent. And so you buy a bunch of cells, you make a bunch of splits, they get in the colonies, and then you have 2 or 3 weeks of nothing but rain, or really where the bees can't fly, the drones can't get out and mate. Even if you got drones everywhere, which we do, if they can't find the queens or they can't get out and fly to mate, then you're going to have some duds as queens. And so I love the idea of getting some mated queens. It's hard to find them, real hard to find them, but Zach was willing to work with me on that. So beautiful queens. They are on the invoice, it said Italian queens, but they also have a heavy Cordovan influence. I'm not sure if they're Cordovan Italians or Italian Cordovans, but a Cordovan queen, for those who may not be familiar, is a beautiful yellow golden queen, and their thorax is kind of a brown or rust color, and they're just beautiful. They're known for being gentle, and they're known to build up really quickly. And so they can starve if you're not careful. They can just eat you out of house and home. But Zach told me that his bees, I think, over there, I think he told me, if I'm not mistaken, they averaged about 100 pounds of honey per hive last year. So obviously Hawaii is different than Alabama. And so we have different flowers, different seasons. And so you can never really compare one area to another as far as how much honey you produce. Even within the same state, even within the same county, different bee yards can produce differently. I'm excited. They're beautiful queens. He packaged them very nicely. If you watch the video, you'll see that it was just really cool the way he packaged them. And I'm gonna, because we got a few people on this chat tonight, I'll go ahead and let you know we had a really good success rate. I'm working on the video right now. I just got started working on that today, editing it, but we had a really good success rate. I think 20 out of the 21 colonies ended up with queens in them. Some looked a little better than others. And then I actually have at least one or two that when I did my splits, I ended up with getting the original queen got in there. And so they killed the new queen when it came out, which I'm not too worried about that because hopefully the donor colony will make their own queen. But I didn't want that to happen. But the way we made the splits this time, we had to be quick. I think that was your original question, right, Grayson, is how we made the splits. I had Lynn Warren and her husband Dave came up from, they live about 35 miles away, I think, or something like that, about 35 minutes away from the Applin Farms bee yard down here. And they came and helped me do the split. She's a Hive for Heroes mentee, and I really appreciate her service. She served in the Army. But what we were doing, the weather wasn't real good. It wasn't too bad at first, but it was getting cloudy. The rain was going to move in. And so we were just going through those big, strong colonies there. We were pulling out at least a couple of nice frames of brood and trying to get a lot of bees in the splits, looking for the queen, trying to avoid, shaking the queen in there, bringing the queen with us. And
yeah.
that was the goal. And wanted to have a frame of food, two to two and a half to three, 2 to 3 frames of brood, a nice brood, a lot of bees. And then we put an empty frame in most of them, a foundation. And then I moved, we made 9 at Applin Farms, and I took those over to Slocum, and then it started raining. And so I just set them there, put some sugar water in a quart jar, top feeder on there, and just went home because it was just starting to rain. And so the next morning I came out there. If you watch the video, you'll see all this, but I went ahead and put the queens in there, in the ones that we had made the splits on that Friday. And then we broke out 11 more splits and took those back over to Applin Farms. And we've introduced the queens there. Now, the reason I took them to a different spot was, if you set the colonies down the same bee yard, the foragers will all go home. And so you'll end up with a lot of splits that don't have much population in them. And I think this time of the year, when there's a risk of it maybe getting a little cold or chilly, especially since I was putting so much brood in them, don't want that brood to get chilled. You want the bees to survive and actually be able to keep that queen warm too. And so I wanted to make sure I kept all the bees, that were there when I stuck them on the trailer. So by moving them, the foragers aren't going to be able to go home. They'll stay with that colony. So that's kind of why I did that. But that's how I made those splits. If you want to know what my favorite splitting method is, and it's a much safer splitting method for the queens, and if you're not in too much of a hurry, or you can take a little more time. What I like to do is, and it's a real tried and true method of splitting beehives, is I'll bring say for example, you can do it either way, but just for example, say you've got a really strong a 10 frame deep, so packed out with bees. Just say you got 6 or 8 frames of brood. You want to make a split. You can shake all the bees down below. Each frame you pull out, look for the queen. If you don't see her, then just shake all the bees off of there and put them in another box, over off to the side, sitting somewhere. And if you see a frame you want to take, now you don't have to shake all the frames, or just the ones you want to take. Just shake all the bees down to that lower box. Take the brood frames that you want, shake all the bees off. Then you can put a queen excluder over that 10 frame box, and just say you want to make a 5 frame split. Once again, you want a frame of food, 2 to 3 frames of brood, and maybe an empty frame. So you want to have at least 4 frames above that queen excluder. You could even put more in there just to help draw more bees up. But what you do is you put the queen excluder down, all the frames you want up there. You pull up above the queen excluder. The queen is down below. You want to make sure she's got plenty of room to lay down there, and you can fill the rest of it up with empty frames, whether they're foundation or comb. And then you just let them sit there at least for a few hours, if not overnight. Come back the next day, and because you pulled that brood up, especially if there's a little bit of open brood in there, you can do it that way as well. Those nurse bees will come up and get on that comb that's above the queen excluder. And you can take those 5 frames out, stick them in a nuke box, or if you want to just take the whole box off, if you put 10 frames up there, you can go ahead and fill it out like you want it to be. You can just pull that whole box off, set it on a bottom board, and take those bees away. And or you can theoretically you could take the main bottom hive away with the queen in it, and then leave that box sitting right there, whatever you want to do. And then you just drop a queen or a queen cell into that hive you've pulled away. And so that's a really foolproof way to do it. You pretty much are almost guaranteed to have the queen down below. You know where she's at, and it actually is pretty quick. And then you can just come back the next day, pull those frames off, and go. You don't have to try and look at every frame 3 or 4 times to try and find the queen. So that's a real common way to do it as well. There's so many different ways to do splits.
Yeah, there is a lot of different techniques, for splitting. Of course, I think some of it does, go to, where you're located, and of course, some of that stuff. And there's a lot of different methods I use and I've used before, and I've found that works. This year, if we have any like swarming problems and we need to do any splits, like I said, I only have one hive so far that out of the 6. You know, we're going to replace those with 6 nukes and do a little bit better this year, like I mentioned earlier. But what we're going to try to do is my one hive, if they get really big and they try to swarm, I'm probably just going to split them down the middle and put one in another 10 frame box at a different location. And I guess basically kind of a walkaway split. You can kind of view it as that if you want to. And, leave the queen in the original location and put the other hive at a different location. Maybe order a queen or put a queen cell in. But this is probably going to be later on in the year whenever it's ready to swarm. It may not swarm. I really just, have plans, if something happens, I'll be ready for it. I don't want to be unprepared for something. But
Well,
there is.
if you break into that thing and if you see queen cells, then that's a great time to make a split right there, because you can take those cells with you and make sure you leave at least a queen cell in each colony, and
That's right.
you have an automatic split there. And theoretically, I think if you take that queen with you, if you take her away, then that's almost like a artificial or a forced swarm, and so that may take away some of her tendency to want to swarm. But if she's an old queen, that's always a risk. The older the queens get, the more tendency they have to want to swarm. 2 things that cause queens to swarm are, I think, old age is a big part of it, and also crowding. If you get the bees crowded, then they'll swarm. So those are kind of the 2 things you want to be careful of.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that's gonna be. I'm ready for the bee season to come along once we're in that spot. Of course, it's been really really warm. I'm sure y'all have been having really really warm weather too. I know y'all are probably a little bit south of us, about an hour south up here we're kind of a little bit. We're kind of maybe 10 minutes, somewhat south, I would say, of Troy, and we. Today we had 80 degrees, and it said it was 79, but you can round it up to 80. And I think some people in here probably are up north who watch here that go through very very cold weather and stuff. So that's interesting to see other people from other locations on our chat, which is good. And but we're just getting ready for the bee season. Here, we're not too far away. We're about to be in March. Today's February 26th, so we're here soon going to be in March, and be able to do fun things like that. Like I said, I'm gonna be getting some nukes here soon in February, so that's gonna be fun too. There's gonna be a lot of fun things that's gonna happen this year that will be good. And I see you got Jason down there. We are considered northeast.
Yeah, why don't we should just take a minute and kind of go through and recognize the folks we got on here.
Yeah,
We got a lot of names I recognize and a couple I don't recognize.
yeah,
We got Michael. I don't know how you say your last name, Michael Tangway. We got
I think so.
Russell. We got Toby Reeder who lives in Roten. That's real close to you, isn't it? I think.
See
Grayson,
here. I think
Roten.
so.
Are you
Probably.
in? Yeah, Roten's really close. JB is right there in Clio, which isn't far away either.
I don't think so.
Total Clio is not far from you. It's a little bit east, but Roten is not at all. Roten is up there around Troy. He's up there close to you somewhere in
No.
Pike County, I think. Are you in Brundage? Is that where you're at?
We are
Grayson?
in Pike County, and I think we are pretty near Greenwich.
Okay. So we got Russell, we got James Noel,
A lot of people.
Brian. We got Brian in here from Flower Street. We got Triton, Three Oaks Honey Farm. We got Tracy. Anyway, just a lot of really good names in here. A lot of names I recognize. White Smoke Honey we got in here.
There you go.
So
You
we
got
got a
what?
pretty good little crowd in here, man. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. A lot of good folks. Iowa, Lands, Beekeeping. We got George. I'm just trying to go through. If I missed somebody, guys, it wasn't on purpose. We got Keith Spillman in here from Half Tracks. Hey, Keith. I talked to Keith quite a
Oh
bit at the
yeah.
conference. He's a great guy.
Oh definitely.
Ripple Effect. And let's get JB there. Gunline Bees is here. Hey,
Tim.
Gunline. Thanks for all the
Sure.
comments and participation, guys. I think that's mostly what we got. We got Jason from Bohemia, mentioned him. We definitely got Jason. Welcome aboard, Jason. We got John McGinnis.
Sure.
And
We got a
so
little.
anyway, appreciate everyone for being in here, man. That's a pretty good little group of
Oh,
folks. And like I said, I recognize a lot of those names and a couple I may not recognize, but thanks again for joining us on Grayson's channel tonight.
yeah, I
We
do
got
appreciate it.
Mary Wickenheiser from Michigan. That's one thing I like about YouTube is you got people from all over the world. It's pretty
Oh
dang
yeah,
neat to see that. Yeah, it's real cool.
yeah, very cool. I have like viewers on. I think I do have um somebody from. Let's see here. We got JP from France. I don't think he's in here tonight, but we have somebody from France. We also have people who watch from UK, which is very very cool. Thank you, Jason, for the $9 donation. I really do appreciate it. And there you go. You got Roll Tide chat this evening. But I am looking forward, and I do appreciate everybody. I do gotta say that I do gotta appreciate everybody who is joining us tonight, and um, we really do appreciate it. And one thing I do want to say here before I forget, I do gotta say thank you to some of the other beekeepers who support channel who donate or whatever, because I've been talking about getting a bee vac, and like a go getter everything bee vac, and everybody hears me say it, and sometimes it's people know who me. Sometimes it takes a while for me to do something that I say, but I finally got around to doing it. So we ordered it yesterday, so it's gonna be coming in Thursday. So I'll probably do a little video on that. That'll be fun to be able to figure out bee vac and be able to do that. And when we're on this subject, swarms and preventing swarms or whatever, when we're on that um subject. So this year, are you planning on trying to do any like swarm? You trying to catch any swarms this year?
I've already caught one,
Oh,
maybe
really?
two. I was going out there and I showed on that last video once again. I went out there, it was raining, and to hit those bees and slick them, there was a small swarm hanging in a tree, and I didn't get video of the swarm while it was still up in the tree, but I thought, well, maybe I ought to shoot what's going on here. So before I left, I actually took a just took a frame of comb and I reached up there. It was about eye level, maybe a little bit above head level. I reached up there and just held the comb underneath the swarm and just shook the swarm and it fell on the comb. I stuck it in a box. I did that a couple of times and next day I came down there and the bees were all in the box. And so it
Oh
worked.
wow,
It's
that's pretty
very, very
cool.
simple. Yeah, very simple. Just shook it right on that comb and stuck it in the box. So
That's pretty
that's
cool.
one technique. And you can also just kind of set a frame up against a swarm and they'll kind of start walking on it. That's one thing a lot of people may not realize. If you have comb, they'll do that. I bought I can't remember the name of it, a new little device for catching swarms up high in a tree. You stick it on a extendable pole, like a paint pole or something. You can stick it up. It's like a little clamp. It clamps on the end of a post. It's for catching swarms up high. And all you do is clamp that comb, that frame of comb on there, and you raise it up there and you just lean it up
Yeah.
against the bees and the bees will kind of climb on it. You bring it down, stick it in the box. And so I thought, well, if that works, I might as well just try it when it's a low altitude swarm. And I did shake him to give him a little bit of a head start because it was raining. I was trying to get out there. Yeah, Brian Seek says it's a swarm reacher. That's what it's called. It's kind
Oh
of a neat
yeah.
thing. I haven't tried it yet. I had a swarm up high in a tree, the very first one I saw for the year, and they were like 30 feet up, probably 25, 30 feet up, and I couldn't get to them. However, they're building an open air hive up at the top of that tree. It's probably, like I say, about 30 feet up in the very top of the tree. And they never left. They're still up there in that tree building that open air colony. You can see them in that, that U shape. It is pretty neat when they do that. I don't know how well they'll survive. They survive some freezing temperatures, so
Oh
maybe
yeah.
they're going to do okay. Who knows?
Yeah, I get you. We do got Ian in here, so we got another person from a different country. We got Ian in there
Yeah,
from
Ian.
Canada.
What up, Ian? You guys had a busy week up there this past weekend. It sounds like
Yeah, I heard
up
what they
in
had to say
Canada, they
about.
had a conference up there.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw some videos of that, and I heard about that up there in Canada. So that's pretty good to see, Ian. I appreciate you jumping in here. And when we're on swarms, I'm planning on trying to do some cutouts this year since I bought the bee vac. And it's gonna be on its way. We're gonna try to do that and try to do a couple cutouts and try to be able to do some videos of it. I think that'll be really fun to extend some different things to the channel, video wise, and also going to try to catch a couple swarms. Basically these things are be really local. I'm not really going to go far like some people do, like in different states or whatever, unless if it really gets something that I can do. But for now, we're just going to do it kind of locally, and then maybe maybe if it expands, we'll do more, and we'll see how that goes. And I'll do videos on how that kind of works out whenever we're going to do that. I think that's going to be fun. And I'm going to make sure we didn't miss any questions because I thought there was a question in here somewhere that I missed, because sometimes these comments go by very quickly. I miss people who ask something. Oh, here we go. We got JB in here, and he says, I've got 150 acres in Clio, Alabama. When do you think I should put swarm traps out?
Now, as soon as you can. I mean, the bees usually, historically over the years, you'll see an occasional swarm in February, maybe even every once in a while in January. But in this area right here, which is where we all are, us two, and then also JB. But they really start swarming the first part of March, and by the end of March, is game on for about a month, 4 or 5 weeks, or even 6 weeks, through April and even into the first part of May. Then, in my experience, it tends to start slowing down. But your prime swarms are going to start happening here in the next. They're starting a little bit now, but they're going to start happening here in the next probably couple of weeks and ramping up on through April. So I would get them out pretty quickly. I
Yeah,
think if you wait a couple of weeks, you're still going to have a pretty good chance of catching them. But if you wait till mid-April to put them out, your chances are a little bit less likely, though you still could catch one then.
I get you. Let's see. Bohemia Bees. Did you ever look into local grants to purchase that BVAC, Grayson? We have a county grant that agriculture farms beekeepers can apply for. Not yet. We haven't done that. But maybe it probably is something to look into. Let's see. We have another question here for Bruce. It's very well. Oh, here it is. It's from Brian from Flower Street, and he asked Bruce, "How is Big Red?"
It's funny you should ask, Brian. That hive has gotten to be so nasty and mean. I think she's still alive. The last time I checked, she was. I think we had a big red sighting on a video Maybe that day I filmed the Strong Bees video, but I haven't been in there since. And it's possible they've swarmed. I just haven't been in them. I didn't go in them when I made splits this past weekend. The issue with that hive is they were in double deep medium boxes, and so I added a deep on top to give them some space to grow. And they haven't really moved up into that deep very well. They were pretty strong looking in the double deep medium, and so I think there's a I haven't been in them to see honestly, but probably 3 weeks ago she was alive and well, doing good. But man, they're just so spicy and nasty.
Yeah.
I might have to do something about that coming up, which I hate to do. I wish she was a gentle bee. And if they really grow up and if they really are productive, I'll leave them alone and let them produce this year. But if they kind of decide to stay at a certain size and stay small, especially if she's still in there, I might have to replace her. But as of right now, we're just letting her do her thing and hopefully grow that colony and see what happens. This, like I say, though, it's possible she swarmed because they haven't moved up into that next box like I thought they would.
Oh, I get you. Let's see here. Ripple effect. Yes. Do you still do bee removals, Bruce?
I have done very few bee removals. I've helped some people. I've done a couple. I don't particularly like to do bee removals, and the biggest reason is because I just don't. It's just a time thing with me. I can walk out and do you know, you can make a split pretty easily in 10 to 15 minutes, even less time if you're really fast. During a nice time of the year, you don't have to worry about things. But you can make a split in just say 15 minutes, whereas a removal could take anywhere from an hour or two on up to all day, depending on the situation. I also don't have the carpentry skills to really know the best way to get into a house, especially an occupied structure. Now, if it's an old barn that's about to fall down, they're going to destroy the barn anyway, or the house anyway. It's going to be demolished anyway. I would be more consider doing it more likely than if it's actually in a structure. But I do have 2 or 3 guys that I trust that if people call me about bees in their house or in a structure, I just refer to them typically. I just don't have time to fool with removals, even though there is some money involved in it. You might get paid a little something, or for some people, they get paid quite well, but they're professionals. It's just like any other profession. It's just like if you have a plumber come out or someone, electrician come out, beekeepers that do bee removals are professionals as well. And so, if you want to if you want to do removals and get paid to do it, you need to make sure that you first of all, know what you're doing and you understand what you're doing with the houses and the structures you're going into, and figure out ahead of time what you're going to do. But yeah, if it's in a tree or an old building or something, I may take a stab at it, but it's just so easy to make splits. It's just so much easier and quicker to me. And it's just not worth the time to put into trying to do removals. Not to say I would never do one, but I'd rather go help someone do one than do it myself.
Oh, yeah, I get you. And whenever I do get this bee vac, I don't really plan on doing too big of construction stuff unless if I know what I'm doing, because I don't want to, unless if it's like a barn or something. There was a old rotting camper that I was going to try to get a swarm in last year. Right? It's actually a cutout basically, and it was too hot. And they were very, very spicy. So I didn't. The first time I went 2 days, and the first time I didn't have a smoker, so that didn't go really well. And bees were stinging me, and I think I did get a couple stings. And it was just so hot. I decided I'd go the next day, maybe a little earlier. And we really didn't get there, any earlier. We just kind of got there about the same time, and then we just decided we'd wait a little bit longer. So we waited till about 30 to 4 o'clock. It kind of cooled down, so we were able to get into there a little bit better. And this camper was rotting. It really wasn't anything. I think they were going to tear it down anyway. I don't know if the bees are still there or not, because it's been almost like probably about 8-9 months since that occurred. And we're going to make sure that they're still alive and they're still in that camper. We're going to come and try to remove them and get them out of there, because I think they're going to get rid of that camper. From what I know, they may try to fix it, but from what I see, it doesn't seem like it could get fixed, unless they really did get somebody to really fix it up and maybe take some parts out of it. They probably could recycle some of the parts, of course, but the whole camper is really like half of it's kind of off of the back side, so it's just kind of not really a good structure. But we're going to try to get that if it's still there, because I took out a lot of comb, and I unfortunately wasn't able to put it back the best way. So hopefully they were able to regroup and be able to, draw out more comb. But I think when I left, there was a good bit more of comb that I didn't, cut out, and all the comb that I did cut out really wasn't any brood. It was all honey and nectar or pollen, some drone brood. At that time, there was drones still being made in the colony, so that was very interesting. We're to see how it is now and try to remove them. But we do have a question here from Michael Buck, and this is actually a question that I now it comes to me that I am actually kind of curious of too. I'm sure everybody else is Bruce, how do you like Bug Farmer's small hive beetle vacuum?
That thing was responsible for the demise of probably thousands of beetles. So it worked out well. I did have a little issue with it. A couple things about it. It's a small little vac, and it's got a small battery, so the battery would run out. Now, if you don't have but a few beetles, it's not a big deal. But in the case I had, some of my hives had just hundreds, and so it took a long time to go through those colonies and try and suck up all those beetles. But it worked well. I mean, it does the job for sure. I will say that I wasn't super careful with it, and so the tape, it kind of slid off. I didn't really. I kind of got some pressure on somehow. So, but it's no big deal. I can just take that thing and retape it or glue it back on there to use it in the future. But I think it really helped. Now my Ozark bee yard has really suffered. I've lost a lot of bees up there, but if I have some that survive, it's probably a direct result of that bee vac killing so many beetles. Literally, I can't remember. I think if you watch the video I did with that, I think it was like something 900 and something beetles that got killed off of just like 3 or 4 colonies from that bee vac. So it was a ridiculous number of beetles. And typically around here, my experience has been they aren't bad in the wintertime. But man, this year and in Ozark, they have been horrible. You see a few, the places year round. I mean, it's just part of living here in the South. But man, I have never seen beetles like that in the wintertime anywhere. And so, yeah, Mike, the vac is fine. It works good. It's just that it's just I abuse it a little bit. It works great. It does the job. It's just you gotta, if the battery, the battery's not designed to last for hours. It probably lasts a good 30 minutes or even 45 minutes, but it's just not designed to last for a long time. It's just a small little vac, and the suction's great. I just, he had to adapt. If you go back and watch Bug Farmer's video on how he built it, he took the vac that he purchased and he adapted it for hive beetles, and he did a good job. I kind of got it. You have to adjust the tip and cut it a certain way so that it works for hive beetles. And when you put that tip on, it doesn't slide on perfectly. So you got to kind of tape it on. And I think it just got caught in something and kind of worked its way off, but it's not a big deal. I can just, when I get a chance, if I need to, I can just either glue or tape that thing back on there. It's not a big deal at all.
Yeah. Here last year in the Durf and some winter, we had a beetle issue, and at some points during winter, we had some beetles. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I had a beetle problem in one of my hives, and it, there's larvae, beetle larvae, and right now that problem isn't too bad right now. But last year during the Durf, it was just really really bad. Like I had a couple of hives that absconded due to it because there were so many beetles, and I tried to come into the hive and try to fix it, and be able to try to fix the beetle problem. It was just kind of too late. All of the bees left, so who knows where that hive is now. They probably built themselves a new hive, but this was it was actually in middle of the Durf, so I don't know if they were able to build comb. I don't know if there's a flood. That there's certain times during our Durf there can be a flow, sometimes, and during all of winter, we had something like, so I saw some pollen coming in, during winter. So it's very interesting where they find this, this pollen. And right now we have a lot of pollen and a lot of nectar, a good flow, somewhat of a flow going on right now. And they're laying a lot of brood in my one hive that I have, and they're building up quite nicely. The one hive I do have is the one that I'm sure you, Bruce, it's kind of blue outside of the hive, and it's one of my best hives, and it's doing really, really well right now. I'm really impressed with how they are coming along, like 3 frames of brood along with eggs, and the queen's still really good, going on its, let's see here. This is, if at the end of this year, it'll probably be about 32 years, since that, since I have that queen. So, I may want to be able to take some of those genetics, and do a little queen rearing. And I know you're kind of gonna experiment with queen rearing this year. So, well, on this topic of queen rearing, I was wondering if you could kind of share with us kind of what your intentions are for queen rearing, because I know you have some videos on trying to pick some genetic stock that you want to use for queen rearing. I was wondering if you could share with us kind of what you're gonna try to do on queen rearing this year.
Well, it is something I want to do, and I plan on doing it. I'm probably going to wait until the end of March or April to do that because, once again, I've not really. The bottom line is with queen rearing, it's just so much easier to buy cells already made, or with my time, it's easier to do that than to fool with it. But I'm determined to do it this year. And I need to make another 20, 30, even 40 splits like right now. And just to get that many queen cells, ready to go myself, it's just hard to do. And so I'm actually in the hunt right now for some queen cells. I've contacted some people today to try and get some cells, but probably late March, early April, I want to break out the old queen rearing kit. I bought an easy peasy system, which is a neat little system. I bought it at the conference. And basically, they use the JZBZ little cups, and it's a very similar process. But they got these little cages you put over that fit right over the cells, and so they can either mature in the hives or in an incubator. And those little virgin queens, if you can't get back in time to get them in hives before they emerge, the little virgins will catch them in those little. It's kind of like the roller cages type of a principle. But those cages you can just pop off. You can put the candy plug in the end. They kind of are used for multiple different things, and so. Anyway, that's the system I bought. I do plan to do that this year. I've got, I want to improve my genetics as far as attitude goes. A lot of my bees are pretty darn feisty, although overall I think it's getting better. We'll find out. And especially with those queens I got from Hawaii, they're supposed to be really gentle natured. And so we'll see what they add to the whole program. And so I want to find good, strong, rugged bees that are gentle is kind of what I want. Now I've got, one hive, the number one hive on that video is down in Slocum. Just a wonderful colony. They were so strong last year. I think it was a split that I made last year with the cell early in the year, and they built up. They produced some honey. They were in double deeps. So they were in double deeps, just busting out of the seams a few weeks ago. And so I put another deep on it. They're triple deep with a honey super on top, I believe, or maybe it's a double deep with honey super on top right now, just to give them some room. And I went and did. I went ahead and pulled a split out of there last weekend. I just had to get splits. And so, but I do plan to kind of graft off of her. She's been a really nice queen. And then I have, let's see, I think, Ripple Effect says he has cells. Yes, he does, but I don't think he ships the cells. I don't think Ernie ships the cells. I think you have to get him in person. He's in Texas. I know he does ship virgins out. I'm still trying to figure all that out. I really want to make some of my own queens, but I might do it in the next couple of weeks, except I'm going to be at the conference up in Wisconsin on the 16th. And that would be right around, I would need to be trying to be dealing with these cells. And so I think I'm going to just wait until after that, get home, see how the weather is, and make sure we got drones flying, everything, the conditions are good, and then maybe try and make some queens. And so that's kind of where I'm at. The 4 colonies that I looked at, number 1 looked really good. Number 3 looks really good. Number 2, I went in the other day and they're really spotty brood. They're not looking very good. Number 4 looks pretty good, but I found another one that is excellent too, in that same bee yard underneath the cell tower, that I may pull some grafts out of later in the year. But early this season, you just don't know what they're going to look like a month from now. You got to kind of get an idea, but the best thing to do is to just wait and see how they look in the spring. And Ripple Effect says cells are way cheaper. That is 100% true. Cells are great. The only issue is with cells, you don't know you do know what drones you're going to have, but in my situation, I have so many different feral bees around that they're going to have an effect on plus I have some bees that don't have super desirable genetics, and you don't really want them mating if you can help it with those drones. And so if you get mated queens, you don't have to worry about who they're going to mate with. I mean, hopefully the queen breeders have figured that out. So there's so many things to consider. I want to get a really nice stock that does what I want it to do, and then start worrying about maybe breeding in some of my, maybe the VSH type stuff. And I don't know. My mind is all over the place on it, but I want to pick like Ernie Welch in Texas. What he does, he told me this. He never treats, and I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but he started years ago. I think he's been doing this for like 20 years or longer. But he pulls the very best. He finds the colonies that have the desirable traits that he wants, whether it's general attitude and just the big, strong, vibrant survivor type bees. And then he pulls his grafts out of those, and then he open mates them. And then he assesses every colony before he breeds out of a queen. He assesses those colonies over time and makes sure they have the attitudes and the traits he likes. And he's continued to do that over the years. So now he has developed a breed of bees that are mite resistant, and they never are treated, and they also are fairly gentle. And so, but we're talking 20 years of developing that gene. So it's not he doesn't utilize just let the survivor stock. He doesn't utilize the survival of the fittest, where he just like let your weak bees die. He just breeds from the best. And over time, you're breeding from the best. You're going to have more good queens out there that are producing more good drones. And he also, if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't just breed from like the same one or two breeder queens. I think he pulls from several. And so he's got all kinds of different genetics out there kind of crossing with each other. I think they're 100% Texas mutts, but they turn into pretty darn good bees. And so that's how he does it. And ultimately, that's what I think I'd like to try to do if I get into queen breeding. But for now, I'm just trying to get my numbers back up and make honey this year, and then try and take a stab at making some queens.
Yeah, I get you. And this year, if everything goes well, I may do some queens, but right now, what I'm really just going to do the same. Really, that's what I've been thinking. I've been thinking what I'm going to be doing this year. Am I going to be my focuses for this year? Really, my focus for this year, like most beekeepers, is really try to boost up my apiary first, because I don't have right now. I have nowhere near what I need to be raising queens, and even in the next couple of weeks, I probably won't either, because I really don't know when these nukes are going to be ready that I ordered. I'm figuring about mid, maybe I could, maybe early April if everything goes well. It just depends on time. Of course, maybe mid April. April will probably be better. It just really depends on the weather and when we can get them in. But right now, really my focus is just trying to expand our apiary a little bit better. We have 6 nukes, so we'll get back to about 7, right where we started. And this year, be able to maybe have all strong halves and be sustainable. Because last year or the year before, and really all my years of keeping bees, I've been keeping bees maybe 7 years, 8 years, somewhere around there. I've really never been sustainable. So this year, we're going to try to be sustainable, stay around 7 halves, and maybe 8 if I do a split off from one of my halves. If that comes across and I need to do that, I'll do it and see how this year goes. And really, that's the plan for this year. And if I can do some queens, great. If I can't, it'll be all right. We'll see how everything goes. And if I am to the point where I can raise some queens, I will.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in Ripple Effect there says, you know, cells are so much cheaper. It's just so easy just to buy cells. I
Yeah.
mean, and they're like $4 or $5 a piece, maybe 6. It depends on who you buy them from. But you can buy 100 cells for $400. If you buy 100 mated queens, you're talking like 3 or 4,000 bucks. So it's just such
Wow.
a big difference, because if they're $30 a piece, 100 would be $3,000, right? So it's just such a money saver if you can buy cells, and it's just so easy. But it's not hard, I don't think, to actually make cells, make queens to graft either. But it's just some extra steps and some extra time that you have to spend to do that. I think if you get your cell builders set up and you get good at it, you could really make them quite easily. And ultimately, I'd like to do that for my best stock. But man, if you can find a good source or good queen cells, it's just
Yeah.
so easy. And if you make a split and the cell doesn't take, it's only $5.
Oh, yeah.
You can just shake the bees on the ground or combine them back with another hive and just try again. You don't have to, if you lose a mated queen that you paid $35 for,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
pretty big investment. It's a big deal. And so it just makes a lot of sense. If you can use cells, if that's what you want to do, it makes a lot of sense if you can find some really good ones.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was, when you're saying that, I can 100% agree, because a lot of times, when you get mated queens, sometimes they'll go for about $30. Sometimes they'll even go for $40. Depends on
Hmm.
really what time you're going to get them and when you're going to get them and the breeder you're going to get them from. Because sometimes I see them like on Man Lake, they go for like $50, for one queen. And if you add that up, like if you need to get, let's say, 50, add that up, it's just a lot of investment. If half those don't make it, that's just a big lost. Or maybe if even if you lose 20%, it's still a loss. So
Yep.
like Ripple Effect says, I've seen from 35 to $50. Sometimes they can be $55 if somebody's just you know selling for
Yeah.
that much, but usually I can see them usually going for about 35 to 50. And there's just a lot, especially if they don't make it, like you said, they'll just a lot of investment.
Hmm.
And that'd probably be something good, Jason. Going back here, you know, um, see where the comment is. Yep, maybe one time, I should get that Nicot system. I've heard of that before. And I'll have to, if I decide, this year will be a good year for grafting and raising some queens. If I want to, I will. It really just depends on how this year goes. Really, for me, if it goes well and I around the say, middle of May, maybe I'd say early May even, if all my hives are really, really strong and I can support what I need to, make a starter and, a finisher probably won't be too hard, to supply, but still will be a lot of bees I'll need. So, we'll just see how it goes. It's not really a full on that, oh, we're gonna raise queens this year. It's just really gonna be a hit or miss if we can get to that point. But this year I really do hope we can do some honey though, because last year we weren't able to get honey last year because right when I was thinking about maybe we could do some, just didn't go well last year for us. And whenever we had all of you know um our honey in there, I had a little bit of honey in there, but all that I just wanted to leave for the bees. I just wanted them to have that for winter. And so they can have a little bit at least going into winter, and I'll feed them all winter long. And that's how we're going to try to do. But we'll see how that goes on queen rearing. I think that's really just what I'm going to try to do and do honey this year. Michael, he asks, do they ship cells?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are some companies that do it, but it's really rare. I actually am trying to contact, there's a couple of places in Florida. I think they're same family, but they kind of two different members of that family make them. It's called Mixa, Miksa. You can probably find them online, but they ship cells. They've been doing it for years. I've never tried that before, and I'm trying to get some shipped, hopefully for next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. And he's checking to see if he can get me some, but he might be sold out for then. And then there's a few other companies that do it, but I've never. I think it's quite it's a kind of an art. It's something you have to know what you're doing and do everything. The timing has to be very perfect. It seems like to me for them to be able to ship out cells because of the fragile state. You got to ship them at the right time so they're not too fragile, and you
Yeah,
also don't want to be emerging in the mail probably. And so you got to just.
yeah,
I'm not sure how they do it. It'll be interesting to see if I can get some. I may try and get some sometime this year to see how they do that. There's also, I think, at least one queen breeder in California that does that. So there are some companies that do that. I've also reached out to some other guys that I know that do sales, and they just they just really haven't tried it yet to see. So it's got to be quite the trick to get sales
oh
shipped in
yeah,
the mail. But they, we've got some people around here that do queen cells down just south of the border in Florida. There's a few places that do it. It's just still just a little bit early. People are just starting to do it, and so it's a matter of finding someone that's doing it this early. And but it's happening. It's about, if it's not already happening. So we're just a couple of weeks away from being able to find queen cells pretty easily, I think. So
I get you. It's pretty interesting. Some people ship them. I'm sure they, there's some locally probably here that do ship them, and it's good for some people, and
yeah,
such.
understandably or interestingly, I don't think there are any queen breeders right here that do ship queens or cells right here in this Dothan, Alabama, southeast corner of the state. There's not a lot of people in the state of Alabama that do it. There's probably a few, but is pretty wide open here in Alabama right now. Alabama has some laws that really are beneficial to our beekeepers. One of them is what they call the comb law, which for those who live outside the state may not understand or know about this, but you're not allowed to bring in bees on comb from out of state.
Oh,
And so that keeps us, that kind of isolates us from a big commercial queen breeder bringing 10,000 colonies from Indiana or wherever from up north down here and dropping a bunch of hives in our backyard. So in some ways the state is wide open for Alabama beekeepers. And so that's what we need to do, Grace. And we need to kind of build up into that. And, there's a lot of hobbyists in the state. There are a few commercial guys, but there are tons of thousands and thousands of colonies south of us in Florida, just less than an hour away, within an hour, 2 hours away, there's colonies all over the place. Over in Georgia, there's quite a few as well, commercial beekeepers, but here, we have a pretty good thing going. So
oh yeah.
now, once again, you may hear me say that and say, well, Bruce, you sent bees out to California last few years on pollination. How'd you get them back in? If they originate in the state, you can get them certified. Like the bee inspector comes in and checks them out. And when they get back, they check them out too and just make sure everything's okay. And so there are ways to do pollination if they originate here in the state. But it's pretty tough to get bees, on comb. You really just about like you can't order nukes from Georgia and bring them over in Alabama. You're not supposed to do that. Not to say it never happens, but you're not supposed to do that. And the law is really designed. Originally, it was designed, I think, for diseases, but it's also designed to protect Alabama beekeepers from great big outfits coming and kind of taking over the state.
Oh yeah, that's probably something good to have. Be able to do that and kind of protect beekeepers in Alabama. I think that's a really good thing to have, and I know probably some states don't have that. Pacific law.
No, they don't.
For
They don't.
um, that probably would help. Spreading of diseases or whatever. So that's something really good for us down here in Alabama that we have. And of course, diseases. Once in a while you'll come upon a disease, but I've never really dealt with any diseases. Any at least American foulbrood. Any of those ones, and we'll see how that kind of plays out, and we'll see going forward. But I think that's really a good thing to have for us down here. Yeah. Let's see, is a cell considered comb under that law?
Yeah, I answered it down below. I don't believe so. I think it's more just like comb. They could have diseases and stuff in it. I guess if you really want to boil down to it, any bees that come in, packages are okay, but they're not on comb. They're not established colonies. I'm almost positive. I know I've brought cells in and had cells and queens and stuff come in from out of state. I think it's more just bringing in a living colony, like on comb and so forth. But packages, because they don't have that comb, you can order packages in from out of state. That's not a problem, from my
Oh yeah,
understanding. The
yeah.
idea too is to help Alabama beekeepers get involved with producing our own bees too. I think that's one of the goals that we're trying to kind of build here in our state, here in Alabama, is to get more people like you, Grace, and more younger people to try and get into the beekeeping industry. There's a lot of older people doing it. And my friend Tyler, though, he just turned 30, I believe. He's really young, and he's gone from being not a beekeeper, and he started keeping bees in 2018, and now he's a commercial beekeeper. Just quit his job within the past year, and now he's running, I think, 1,500 to 2,000 colonies or so, and he's killing. He's doing really well. So he's just right down, really close to us here. He's right down on the Alabama line in Black, Alabama, which is down really down far south. But he's just a great beekeeper, a great example, and he's a young guy that's going to do great things in the state of Alabama.
There you go. Oh yeah, definitely. Good to have other people into beekeeping, and I really like beekeeping. It's really fun and to be enjoyable to go out and work bees. And sometimes beekeepers will see my videos, and I had one particular video that I was in the hive, and it was just like a very very spicy, mean hive. And I went into there, that hive, and really interesting. I don't know. At one point, maybe off camera, I went in there, every 2 weeks or whatever, to inspect, and I didn't bring a smoker. And those bees were just on my veil and stuff. And then when I did my video a while back, they were still very mean, and I brought a smoker and smoked them a good bit. And sometimes on my nicest hives, I don't bring a smoker out, and sometimes beekeepers will, once in a while, they may wonder, why I don't use a smoker. And sometimes, I think smokers are great, and I've used them before, and they work really well. And I really do think people, it's good to use smokers, but sometimes with my small apiary, sometimes lighting a smoker every anytime I go out there can just using it for like maybe 15 minutes sometimes, or maybe even just 10, inspecting a hive or two. Sometimes I find that it may be something that I really don't want to spend the time on. But if I was going out there, like I said, with a mean hive, very spicy hive, I'd 100% take a smoker out there. Or if I had 50 hives, I had to go inspect 10 or something, that'd be something good. And right now I only have one hive, so I don't really like a smoker, which it's still a nice
Yeah.
hive. It's very, very
If
not spicy hive or anything.
if you build up and you've got several colonies and you find that one or two of them are more spicy than the others, a good thing to do is to, at least what I found is that if especially if they follow you around the bee yard, wait and do those last. Because
Yeah.
if you do them early, they'll follow you and chase you around the whole day. I had a hive like that just this past weekend. I was going through, and I think they're queenless. It was a great big tall colony, just bees everywhere, but I think they're queenless. I don't know. They were just absolutely just plain mean, and they followed me around and followed me around, and I didn't realize they were going to be like that, or it would have been good to save them till last. So that's a little
Oh,
trick. If
yeah.
you got several colonies, go through your nice ones first, because they typically, most bees, even if they are somewhat defensive or aggressive, they don't. Now there are some that'll get after you regardless, but most of the time, at least in my experience, they don't get really feisty until you break the lid open and start messing with them, and that's when they get real defensive. And so that's kind of a little trick I learned when I was dealing with some really spicy hives back 2 or 3 years ago, that it's a good idea if you don't want to be chased around all day to do those colonies last. Not that I always do that, but it does kind of help it be a more pleasant experience for you.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, especially with very, very defensive hives, sometimes they'll follow me a little bit. There's one time, whenever I, went into a hive, it was a very defensive hive. It was one of my very, very spicy hives. Right now, unfortunately, it isn't um in my bee yard, because unfortunately it didn't make it through winter because it kind of got very, very small, unfortunate. And but anyway, I was inspecting it, and then I got done with that hive, and I came back, and I accidentally had a bee on my veil, and it went it went in our house, so it was flying around for a little bit. And then sometimes that can happen too, or it can be on the porch sometimes, around our porch sometimes when I bring them back by accident. So sometimes we have that. So that's definitely sometimes good to leave them last, and very good little thing there, to be able to do. We got a lot of people in here still. I'm gonna try to make sure we didn't miss any questions here, because sometimes these comments go by very, very quick. Sometimes I can accidentally miss some. Um, but there was a question here, and I was wondering. So this year, I know I really don't know specifically right now how many halves you have, but I was wondering if you could kind of share with us how many halves you have now, and kind of where you want to be at, by the end of this year. Whenever you're going to try to expand a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit over 100 right now. I just, including those splits I just made, I lost a whole bunch up in Ozark, and I really don't know how many I have. I haven't counted them directly, but my goal is to get back up to 150 or 160 if I can. But if I don't get there, I'd rather have like strong colonies and have living colonies and have 100 or 120 than have 160 and lose a bunch of them. And so,
Oh, yeah.
granted, you're going to lose some every year probably, but trying to figure out how to do something here. Oops, never mind. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my goal. I want to get up there, but I want to be a better beekeeper at keeping my colonies strong. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And the more you get, the equipment becomes very expensive too. I've got
Yeah.
quite a bit of equipment, sitting around ready to go. But I'd like to start kind of cycling some of my boxes out and end up with more of the wax dip boxes. They're just
Yeah.
so much better and nicer, and I probably will get them maybe from Greg. But in order to get a number to make it worth it, I would need to almost make a trip to his place. I've found that if you get to the size I'm at, if you buy things by the pallet, it typically works better. If you buy them in quantity, you can usually get a bit better price. And so, but that is a very expensive, investment usually when you do that. So, but I've got a lot of older equipment. I've got some used equipment over the years that's pretty beat up and looks pretty rough, but it can get me through a little while until I start replacing it with the nicer equipment. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm looking at around 100, 110 now, probably, and hoping to get up to about, minimum 120, 130, if not on up to that 150 mark would be pretty good.
Oh yeah, I get you. And when you're talking about having a little bit less of a house, like maybe over 100 but strong, and that's kind of what I want to do too. And I heard a saying from a beekeeper. I can't really remember who it was, but being able to have you could have, let's say, 30, 25 hives, and they're not very strong hives. They're very weak. They
Mm-hmm.
are not strong at all. For me, it'd be better if I, instead of having 25 to 30 not strong calves, I'd rather really have maybe 15, 10 very very strong calves, because if you have 25 calves, that you probably get back down to 10. So for me, being, I like to have what's workable for me. And this year probably get up to about maybe 8 at the end of the year. I'm not really expecting anything more of than that, just around 88. I mean, not 80, but 8 or 7 at that margin. And that's probably what we're gonna try to go for this year. And let's see, we got a question here from Mary, um, in Michigan, and she asks, "How many nukes do you want going into next winter, or all full halves?"
Is that to me?
I think so.
Um,
Anybody can answer it.
Nukes, I don't know. It depends on how strong they are. Most of mine will probably be full strength colonies, at least, hopefully single deeps. But nukes do well here in the wintertime. I really don't have any idea right now what I'm going to end up with. But in years past, I've had a bunch of nukes going in the winter, and I'll stack them up, double, triple nukes. And this year, I didn't have many of those. Mine were mostly in full 10 frame boxes this year. So it just depends on how things work out. It's I heard a formula one time of someone. They said it's good to keep a third production colony, a third. What they say, maybe nukes. I can't remember what it was. A third. Anyway, they had thirds. Third production colonies, a third. Uh, well, a third of that was nukes or resource hives. Maybe it was a third new young hives, and then a third resource hives, which would be your nukes where you can pull brood and queens from. And so I can't remember what that saying was. It was pretty interesting, but it is good to have a little mixture of things. Moving into the year, it's good to have some resource hives where you don't mind pulling frames of brood and queens if you need to. I have not been good about doing that in the past. I like to keep all my hives. I like to kind of nurse them along. But if you have resource hives where you can like take brood and put it in your bigger colonies if you need to, um, that can help you really bolster your production colonies for honey. It can help you bolster your hives if you want to get them stronger going into winter if they're young. That would have helped me this year up in Ozark, where I made all those late splits and had some very weak splits that didn't make it. If I would have had some resources, or if I would have combined some of those colonies, they probably would have done better. And so those are all things to think about.
Oh yeah, something that I'm also thinking about too. A lot of different things like that too, and very good stuff. Michael Bucky asks, this is a question for anybody too. Do you use double screen boards for your hives in winter?
Um, I have never used double screen boards until I have a little bit this year. I think I have 5 or 6 now, maybe 7. And I've got one I think that's going now, and one of the hives died out underneath it. I've just never really used them much, and so, but I've got 6 or 7 of them. I'm planning on using this year to do some splits with, maybe some different things, just to try them out. I know that um, people love them. I just have never used them much, so I'm gonna probably try and use those a little bit this year.
I get you. Well, thank you, Bruce, for your donation. I appreciate that. I do appreciate everybody, and also I do appreciate everybody else joining our beekeeping chat tonight. Here soon, I guess we'll go on and end it here. If anybody does have any questions, they can put them in the chat. While I'm finishing up here, we'll try to quickly answer it. But I do appreciate you, Bruce. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes, so I guess I'll go on and wrap us up. And I do appreciate you joining us. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. For anybody who's new here, we do live streams every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, so we appreciate you if you join us for those live streams. We really appreciate it. And also do gotta say thank you to everybody who did donate, including Bruce. I really appreciate everybody who joined in. And when you're leaving, go on and click the thumbs up button on this channel, on this video, this live stream. That'll help us out a lot. And if you don't know who Bruce is, I do have his channel link in the description below. If you don't know who he is, you can go check him out and go and subscribe to his channel. That will help him out too. But we do appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Thank you, Bruce, for joining, and everybody have a good night and a good week. And I also hope everybody does have a good bee season. So take care, everybody.